The story begins, and all the students admire the duo of the student council, the president Inumaki Suzui and her vice president Rusen Kazuki, who enjoy great fame in the school. Meanwhile, the student Satu wishes he could be as popular as they are, yet he is nothing more than an ordinary pupil that no one cares about. He often told himself that even if something unusual were to happen to him, no one would pay attention and he would always remain alone. Despite his sadness over his dull life, he did not surrender, for he always kept a hope within him that he might one day live an extraordinary, dream-like life, but most likely his life would remain miserable forever. The sky poured heavy rain, and to his surprise, his umbrella had been stolen. He found another umbrella, but it was not his, and being kind-hearted, he could not bring himself to steal it, so he stayed, waiting for the rain to stop. He wished he could use magic. The calamity was that night had already fallen, and the rain did not cease. Suddenly, the President Suzui appeared before him and asked what he was doing there. Quickly realizing that he had no umbrella, she told him he ought to leave the school at once. He intended to leave without one, but Suzui stopped him, saying it would be improper for a student to return home in the rain like this, for they were the student council. Then Kazuki offered him his spare umbrella. Satu was shocked. Kazuki was his classmate, yet they had never spoken, though he knew his name. Satu realized then that Kazuki was a kind boy, and he thanked him for the umbrella. Kazuki replied, "There's no need for formality. We are classmates." They decided to walk home together. Satu felt intensely nervous, walking alongside the two most famous figures in the school, imagining that the whole school would grow envious of him. On the way, Satu confessed to Kazuki that he had not expected him to be so friendly. Kazuki asked why, and Satu answered, "Because I have only ever seen you speak with the girls in our class." Kazuki explained that he only spoke with them because they were the ones who began the conversations. At that moment, Suzui exposed him, saying he enjoyed speaking with girls. She also humbled herself before Satu, claiming she was just an ordinary student like him, but Kazuki protested, saying, "You are anything but ordinary. You are first in the class in every subject, outstanding in sports, and in addition, beautiful both inside and out." It seemed as though there was love between them. Satu then asked if they were dating. Both were shocked by his question, and Satu felt embarrassed. Kazuki reassured him that they were not dating, only spending much time together because of their duties in the student council. Satu apologized for his awkward question, but Suzui told him, "Do not worry, your honesty is better than whispers behind our backs." She then asked what he planned to do after high school, but Satu had not thought that far ahead. Even Suzui herself admitted she had not yet decided what to do after graduation, sometimes feeling she did not belong to this world. Satu was astonished, for he felt the exact same way. As they continued, lightning struck the power lines because of the storm. Suddenly they all heard the sound of a bell, but Satu heard nothing, while the ringing in their ears grew louder and louder. Still, Satu remained deaf to it. As he approached them, a magical circle suddenly appeared beneath their feet. Satu realized it was a gateway to another world. Kazuki panicked, thinking it was nonsense, while Suzui grew excited and said to Satu, "Do you think we will find magic, monsters, and heroes in that other world?" Satu was stunned that she loved such things. Then the circle drew them in and they vanished from existence. Later, Satu awoke to find them standing before a king. Even Kazuki had no idea where they were. While Suzui was thrilled that they had been transported to another world, the king introduced himself. "I am Lloyd, king of the kingdom of Linger." Suzui was overjoyed to be before a real king, while Satu was dumbfounded by her behavior. The king told them he had summoned them to his kingdom to become heroes. Suzui leapt for joy, while Satu scolded her, "Stop presenting yourself like that, they will misunderstand you." The king continued, 2 years ago, the demon king of this world attacked us. His army invaded our lands, and though our forces repelled them, his power grows ever stronger. We know the next battle will be worse. Therefore, I commanded this sorceress to use a forbidden spell known as the Hero Summoning to call forth exceptional individuals from another world, capable of standing against the demon king. Suzui was so ecstatic she began striking herself in excitement, while Satu grew weary of her antics. But Kazuki, filled with anger, shouted, "I care nothing for heroes or demon kings. How dare you summon us without our consent? Send us back to our world immediately." The king apologized. "I am sorry, but that is impossible. The summoning only works in one direction. It can bring people here, but it cannot return them." Kazuki's rage deepened, desperate to return to his family. When he tried to approach the king, the royal soldiers restrained him. Satu intervened to calm the situation, warning there was no point in starting a fight here. Kazuki barely contained his fury. The king then stepped forward, kneeling before them. "I promise I will find a way to return you in the near future. Until then, I beg of you, please aid us, heroes." The entire royal army bent their knees in respect. Suzui asked in astonishment, "Why do you call us heroes when you know nothing about us?" The sorceress Wilsey replied, "The Hero Summoning Circle is designed to select exceptional individuals. I believe you heard the tolling bells during the summoning. That is the sign of true heroes." But Satu had heard nothing, and he realized he had been dragged into this by accident, transported to this world by mistake. Afterwards, the sorceress Wilsey took them to her chamber to measure their magical potential using a crystal sphere. There, Kazuki turned to Satu and asked if he was content being summoned by mistake. Satu replied that Wilsey had told him he might still be able to use magic, even if he was not truly a hero. Kazuki was astonished. How could Satu remain calm and not angry after what had happened to him? Yet Satu showed no concern. On the contrary, he was glad because he had found something he could actually do in this world. As for Suzui, she was excited to try the crystal orb, so the sorceress Wilsey asked her to place her hand upon it. The moment she did, its color changed, and it began to glow bright yellow. Wilsey told her that this color indicated an affinity with thunder magic, and also revealed that she possessed a vast amount of mana. As usual, Suzui grew intensely enthusiastic to try lightning spells. Then came Kazuki's turn. The orb began to shine with a pure white light, and the sorceress declared that this was the color of light magic. Kazuki asked her, "And what is this magic used for?" Suzui, unable to restrain her excitement, jumped in to answer before Wilsey. "It's used to fire laser beams or forge swords made of light." She seemed to know far too much about magic, but suddenly she turned against poor Satu because he had interrupted her words, and he wept inwardly as his ideal image of her shattered completely. Wilsey then explained that light magic was marvelous, and very few people could wield it, its strength being exceptional against demons, for light disperses evil. Finally, it was the turn of our protagonist Satu, who was nervous, fearing he might have no magical power at all, since he had not been summoned as a hero in the first place. But as soon as he placed his hand on the orb, its color shifted to green and relief washed over him. He did have magic. Even Suzui and Kazuki admired the glow of his magic, but Wilsey recoiled in terror, seized him by the arm, and dragged him straight to King Lloyd. With grave concern, she said, "There is a problem with Satu." The king assumed that Satu was aligned with dark magic, yet the sorceress shocked him by saying that the orb had turned green, meaning Satu was attuned to an extremely rare magic. Everyone stood speechless, the king unable to comprehend, while Satu himself was lost in confusion, thinking, "Is my affinity really that bad?" The king muttered nervously, "We must remove Satu from the castle at once. I shall send him to the town immediately." Satu still could not understand, and asked, "Am I dangerous? Is there someone else with the same kind of magic as mine?" The king, visibly uneasy, confessed that indeed there was another who bore the same magic. Suddenly, a formidable lady burst into the hall, her presence striking fear into all hearts. Even Wilsey trembled before her. The fearsome woman demanded of the king, "Have the heroes arrived?" The king was utterly terrified of her, for he had been concealing from her the matter of the summoned heroes. Now Rose turned her piercing gaze upon Satu and asked directly, "Are you a hero?" Satu leapt up in fright, but the king intervened quickly. "No, Satu is not a hero. He was brought here by mistake. He is nothing more than an ordinary boy." Thus, Satu was introduced to Rose, commander of the kingdom's rescue corps. He was shaken, for how could this woman, who looked like someone who reaped souls rather than saved them, be the leader of a rescue team? At that moment, Wilsey told Rose, "The heroes are in the crystal chamber." Rose immediately left to meet them, and the king felt relief that he had succeeded in hiding Satu's magical power from her. Yet Satu, in his innocence, turned and asked, "What kind of magic is this green color?" Rose heard his question, realized the truth, and the king rushed to divert her away from him. Wilsey cast her spell, forming a circle of water around Satu and pulling him away at once. But Rose dashed forward with lightning speed, soaring into the sky, catching up within moments, and struck him with all her might. The water sphere exploded, and Satu fainted under the sheer force of her blow. The king pleaded, "I will make him a true healer, please. Leave him." But Rose would not relent, and instead took Satu with her. Suzui and Kazuki were stunned upon hearing this, while Wilsey assured them, "Do not worry, Satu is not in danger. He has been taken to the rescue corps outside the castle town. The crystal orb revealed his affinity with healing magic, and healers are exceedingly rare. Rose herself is one, and she intends to train him as her subordinate." Suzui saw no harm in this, but Wilsey warned her. Rose's training methods are far from ordinary, and the followers she produces are terrifying indeed. Meanwhile, Satu awoke to find himself inside Rose's home. She told him, "You possess healing magic, and for this reason I brought you to the rescue corps. From today, this will be your home." Then she summoned her comrades to introduce themselves. Satu was horrified by their monstrous appearances, yet Rose ordered him to be with them. They closed in around him like a pack of zombies, introducing themselves one after another. Tong, Mil, Elec, Gomel, and finally Yord. Their looks were more alien than human, and Satu, trembling with fear, whispered inwardly, "Am I destined to become the sacrifice for their next feast?" But suddenly Rose intervened and ordered him not to frighten the new boy. Mil said to her, "But leader, this is how we welcome people." Elec added that he had been very kind to him. Satu thought to himself, "I don't think they understand the meaning of kindness." Rose then told him that these were her followers, but they were not users of healing magic. She explained that there were other healers in the rescue corps, though they usually worked in other places. Then she cast a terrifying glance at Satu and said, "I will transfer to you the way of using healing magic." Satu wished he had remained alone in his own world, for that would be better than dealing with this madwoman. He tried to politely ask her to let him learn from someone else, but she refused and told him that training would begin tomorrow. At that moment he realized that he had not been transported to another world, but to hell itself. She left him alone with those zombies, who told him his fate was sealed now that Rose would train him, and they burst out laughing at him. Satu could not sleep from the terror of his teacher Rose, but he tried to think positively, fell asleep, and left the matter to fate. Satu awoke hoping that everything that had happened had been just a dream, but Tong's loud snoring confirmed that he had truly crossed into another world. Alec informed him that he had visitors. Kazuki and Suzui had come, worried about him after hearing he had been taken. Satu reassured them that he was fine, but suddenly remembered the cruelty and savagery of his teacher Rose, and his spirit broke because today would be the beginning of hell training. Yet he told them that he wanted to undergo this training even if it was hell, so that he could become someone useful. Suzui grew excited too, for their training would begin today as well. Satu wondered what kind of marvelous training awaited the heroes, and he admired their clothes. Then Kazuki thanked Satu, saying that thanks to him he had made his decision, and told Suzui that he would give his all in this world. Satu felt happiness for them both, thinking that Kazuki must be enduring great hardships after being suddenly brought into another world and told he was a hero. Unlike Suzui, who was thrilled to live in this new world, Satu wished he could grow strong enough one day to support them both. But suddenly, his teacher Rose appeared, and Satu trembled with fear. She handed him a notebook in which he was to record his daily training routine and his feelings about it, then told him that training would begin after breakfast. Moments later, Satu went out to begin training under the merciless Rose. Tong and the others told him the training would be hell, but to his surprise it was easier than he expected. Rose asked him to focus, and soon he felt warmth flowing from his heart. She told him that this warmth was his mana and that he must learn to release it from his body. Then she gave him a book, and Satu panicked because he could not read the language of this world. Yet when he opened the book, he was shocked to find he could read it. Rose explained that summoned heroes are automatically granted translation magic. She told him that this was the kingdom of Linger, and on the other side lay the demon territory. That was why she ordered him to study the books to learn the basic knowledge of the nations, races, and demons of this world. Satu's anxiety eased, for the training seemed surprisingly simple. On the second day, Rose made him run for a long time, and he wondered how running could possibly be training for magic. On the third day, she forced him to run until his muscles ached so badly that he could no longer move, but Rose grew angry at him, and Satu shivered in fear as she struck him with her magic. He screamed in pain, but moments later he was shocked to realize the pain had vanished. Rose had healed his strained muscles. Then she called him trash, and ordered him to keep running. Out of fear, Satu resumed running without a second thought. On the fourth day, he trained with the other madmen, who mocked him for being slow. Even Rose herself bullied him, saying that he ran like an ant. Satu grew angry inside but could not reply. On the fifth day, he ran all day with great effort, while Rose continued to provoke and ridicule him. Exhausted, he collapsed into the mud, only to suddenly see the light of healing magic shining from his own hand. And on the seventh day, Rose kicked him on his backside as if he were a ball. The poor boy suffered constantly under the cruelty of this woman, and that day she became furious with him again and hurled him high into the sky. On the second day, things continued as they were, with poor Satu's body swelling from Rose's relentless kicks. He began using healing magic to treat himself, but was shocked to realize he no longer felt pain. At that moment, Satu understood the importance of healing magic, grew encouraged, and returned to running. By the 10th day, he was able to manifest healing magic whenever he wished, and no matter how much he ran, he no longer grew tired. Yet he remained uneasy, uncertain what running had to do with developing healing magic. Rose ordered him to run 30 more laps with increased speed, and he grew angry at her cruelty. On the 11th day, a new addition was made to his training regimen. Rose forced him into push-ups, and suddenly healing magic began to radiate from his entire body. She explained that his daily running was meant to teach him how to flee from the enemy as quickly as possible in battle, so that he could save his injured comrades, and she told him, the faster you run, the faster you can save your companions. After learning the true purpose of these exercises, Satu became more eager to build his strength. On the 12th day, he ran until noon, then performed push-ups until night, feeling his body grow lighter. His teacher Rose noticed that he had adapted to the training, so she added weights and even struck him with her fist. Because of this, his body quickly became accustomed to the loads. Moments later, Satu realized that Rose had done it intentionally to force his growth. A week later, both Kazuki and Suzui came to visit him, this time accompanied by the knight Surges. Kazuki and Suzui were stunned when they saw Satu training so harshly, performing push-ups beneath a massive boulder with his merciless teacher sitting on top. The foolish Satu pretended he wasn't suffering, but Rose added another stone that nearly crushed him. Still, he endured, and using healing magic, he managed to bear the burden. Rose, proud of him, said, "You are beginning to become my favorite kind of man. Kazuki and Suzui were shocked by what Satu was enduring, but foolish Suzui was deeply impressed by his muscles. The night Surgis grew furious with Rose, telling her she was destroying a young man with a bright future. She mocked him as an old man and ordered him to be silent, declaring she had her own way of doing things. She then said Satu would become her right hand. Satu was stunned to hear this, but Rose continued, "He is a true discovery. I like those who hate to lose, who never surrender, and above all, he survived my training." For the first time, Rose had praised him. She then ordered him to take a break for lunch. At that moment, Surgis asked Suzui and Kazuki to take care of Celia until his return, for he wished to speak with Rose alone. Satu left with them. Meanwhile, Surgis told Rose he had been ordered to recruit her again, but he could not accept her methods. Elsewhere, Satu sat with his companions in a pleasant spot. Kazuki explained to him that Commander Surgis was the one who led the army of the Kingdom of Linger, the strongest knight in the realm, and also the one who taught both him and Suzui swordsmanship. Satu was curious about the young lady before him, and she introduced herself as Celia, daughter of the king. Satu was shocked, apologizing for his rudeness, but she told him there was no need to be formal. Suzui, as always, teased Kazuki and told Satu he was acting just like Kazuki had in the beginning. Then Princess Celia offered them a beautiful cake, and they enjoyed its wonderful taste. Kazuki asked Satu if he endured such brutal training every day. Satu replied that what they had seen today was actually very light compared to what he had been through before. Kazuki admitted that their own training was difficult as well, but Commander Surgis and the sorceress Wilsey always cared for their health and safety, while teaching them the ways of sword and magic. He then apologized to Satu. Suddenly Suzui, in her foolishness, leapt toward Satu, wanting to examine his muscles. Satu had grown muscular, and Suzui was obsessed with them, leaving the princess embarrassed. Kazuki continued and asked Satu if it was truly hard for him. Satu confessed that training here was extremely tough, and in the beginning he always wanted to run away, but now his feelings had changed. Though Rose was terrifying, he no longer wanted to flee. He had blended in with the madmen, and training had become enjoyable. He admitted that life here was not bad. Satu then used healing magic and told Kazuki and Suzui that he wanted to help them, since they would one day fight as heroes. Soon after, Tong arrived bringing Satu's lunch, but Satu was furious at him because he had stolen his meal the day before. The two fools began fighting. Princess Celia grew worried about what was happening, but Kazuki assured her it was normal, part of Satu's daily life. Suzui remarked that Satu lived freely here, more naturally and comfortably than either of them, and had adapted much better. Kazuki grew fired up too, wanting to return to the castle to train. Suzui was delighted to see Satu, for he had given them the desire to train harder. That night, Satu bathed alone, still remembering Suzui's behavior that had embarrassed him, yet he realized he had grown stronger. He had healed his muscles over and over after they were torn by harsh training, and in the end, he had gained a powerful muscular body. He recalled Rose's words, "The faster you run, the faster you can save your comrades," and he wondered if he could truly save the wounded on the battlefield, and whether he possessed the mental strength to match the body he had built. The next day, Rose struck him with her travel bag, and this time she brought along the guard Thomas, who trembled in fear at the sight of her. She told him that she wanted to see the outside world to sell it, and Thomas, terrified, opened the gate for her. Rose took Satu out of the city, and when he asked where they were going, she ordered him to be silent and follow her. She led him into the forest known as the Darkness of Linger. Rose told him that this forest was full of monsters, and she said, "Do not return until you have hunted the great grizzly bear." Satu was shocked and begged her to reconsider, for he was terrified, having read in the book that bears were extremely dangerous. But Rose told him that he should be able to defeat one easily now. Satu grew even more frightened, telling her that all he had done so far was run, and that he did not know how to fight. But Rose paid no attention and hurled him against his will into the monster-filled forest. The poor Satu flew through the sky, convinced he would die. He even imagined that people would mock him in death, saying his teacher Rose had thrown him. But he refused to die here. He used healing magic on his entire body and landed with force, striking the ground in a majestic fall. He thanked God he was still alive and healed some of the wounds caused by the impact. He thought to himself that he could not return from this forest before fulfilling Rose's command, yet he was utterly terrified of the bears. This time, however, he decided to muster his courage to defeat a great grizzly bear. The foolish Satu tried to encourage himself, saying that a bear was nothing and he would defeat it easily. But before he could even finish his words, a terrifying bear suddenly appeared behind him. All his courage vanished, and he fled, while the bear, hungry for his flesh, pursued him. Satu was certain that he was faster now, and that the bear would not catch him, but to his horror, the beast was right behind him. Remembering the suffering he had endured under his teacher Rose, he realized that this bear was nothing compared to her brutality. For that reason, Satu stopped running and prepared to face the bear head-on. But another bear suddenly appeared, and the poor Satu fled again. Even the blue hornets joined in the chase. At that moment, Satu heard the sound of rushing water. Without hesitation, he hurled himself toward the river, plunging in and miraculously escaping from the savage bears. That evening, evening, he sat alone in the forest, waiting for his clothes to dry. He had nothing but a weak knife, nothing to light a fire with, and even his bread had turned as hard as stone. The poor Satu suffered under Rose's brutal tasks, and he thought to himself that he had to defeat the great grizzly bear to survive this torment, but it seemed an impossible task. He fell asleep, using healing magic to warm himself. At dawn, he awoke, ready to try his luck once again. He thought that he needed to know more about his enemy, so he decided first to discover where the great grizzly bear lived. He searched the forest until he found claw marks that could belong to bears. At that moment, he heard the sound of an animal approaching, but it turned out to be nothing more than a gentle rabbit, sad and limping from a wounded leg. Satu was astonished to find that the black rabbit understood him, so he healed its wound. Then he resumed his search for the great grizzly bear, but the black rabbit began to follow him. Satu told it not to, warning that he was hunting dangerous monsters and that it would be in danger if it stayed with him. But the rabbit did not care and kept following him, for it knew the location of the great grizzly bear. Satu followed the black rabbit, and indeed it led him to the bear's den. Satu tried to observe them without being noticed, realizing that they were a single family. Afterward, he went to look for water, and in the end, he was forced to drink from the polluted river. He began to think that the blue hornets were rather cute, and found himself strangely enjoying the moment, even telling himself that he was living a very happy life. But then his stomach began to ache, and he realized he had been poisoned by the river water. Even healing magic could not stop the pain. He writhed in agony, yet still found joy in the company of the gentle rabbit. The next day, the rabbit led him to a pool of pure water, but moments later the rabbit grew extremely frightened, for something dangerous was near. The rabbit shook in terror, and Satu was stunned when an enormous serpent appeared. Satu was paralyzed with fear, feeling the serpent's hunger for blood, and told himself it was better not to approach it. 4 days passed since he had first seen the monstrous serpent, and he could not rid himself of the unease within. He continued watching the great grizzly bear from afar, happy to see the gentle blue hornets, yet he knew he could not return home without defeating that mighty beast. For the first time, Satu gathered his courage and decided to challenge the great bear the next day. But when the day came, the weather turned rainy, and the black rabbit would not allow him to leave until the rain had stopped. After the rain ceased, Satu went to face the great grizzly bear, optimistic that he would defeat it, yet the rabbit sensed something strange. Satu did not care, for he had to defeat the bear to leave this forest. When he reached the bear's den and steeled himself to fight, he was shocked to discover that the bears had been slaughtered. Fear struck him, for he had failed in his mission to Rose. He noticed bite marks on their corpses, and concluded that the giant serpent had killed them not for food, but for amusement. Suddenly a small cub emerged from the rocks, weeping bitterly for its mother. Satu thought to himself that he hated losing before Rose, and grew angry that the serpent had stolen his prey. But what struck him most was the cub's tears over its parents. He disliked what he was witnessing, his anger ignited, and he resolved to take revenge for the cub. Meanwhile, Kazuki and Suzui went to visit Satu, but Tong told them that Satu had been training in the forest and had been absent for 10 days. Kazuki was stunned, deeply worried for Satu, while Suzui tried to calm him, saying she was just as concerned but trusted teacher Rose, and she trusted Satu as well, certain that he would return in good health. At that time, Satu was preparing himself to confront the giant serpent. He crafted a spear and asked the black rabbit to guide him to the monster. The rabbit was terrified, but Satu told it that all it had to do was show him the way, and then it could flee. The black rabbit agreed and began searching with him. After a long search, Satu was horrified to find the cub fighting the massive serpent. The cub was enraged, desperate to avenge its parents, but the serpent was dreadfully dangerous, its gaze alone radiating terror. When Satu saw this, he remembered Rose and told himself there was nothing more frightening than her, and with that thought, he gathered his courage to fight the serpent. The foolish Satu thought the serpent was distracted, but the monstrous beast nearly swallowed him whole. Satu seized the chance and drove his spear into the serpent's eye, but the beast struck him with its tail. Satu used healing magic to lessen the damage and braced himself to continue the fight. He told himself that he must strike from the serpent's right side, where its blind spot lay, but the dust deceived him, and the serpent lured him into a trap and bit him. Satu screamed in pain, realizing he had been tricked, yet he refused defeat, used healing magic again, and thrust his knife into the serpent's mouth, the pain forcing it to release his arm. Suddenly, Satu began to lose consciousness as the serpent's venom spread through his body. But he remembered his previous poisoning from the polluted river water and realized he could heal himself of toxins. When the poison harmed him from within, he had to heal himself from the inside out. With that, he regained awareness and returned to the fight. The serpent lashed at him again with its tail, but the cub intervened to protect him. Satu seized the opportunity, leapt over the cub, and finally reached the serpent's head, delivering a crushing punch to its eye, a blow nothing less than devastating. The serpent collapsed unconscious from the strike, but Satu did not stop. He drove his spear once more into its eye while the cub pinned the beast with its claws to keep it from escaping. Satu continued stabbing the serpent until he was certain it was dead. Our weak hero had succeeded in defeating the monstrous serpent, and he rejoiced in his victory, but he froze when the cub approached him. At first he was afraid, but the cub showed affection, for Satu had avenged it. Satu told the cub that he could not heal its wounds now, for he was using all of his mana to neutralize the venom and could no longer move. But then the catastrophe struck. The giant serpent stirred once more. Satu was horrified, unable to believe what was happening, trapped and powerless to move. The little bear tried to help him, but Satu told him to run away while the giant serpent attacked. At that moment, Satu realized this was the end, and he began cursing Rose with the vilest insults. Suddenly Rose appeared and destroyed the giant serpent before his eyes, furious at this fate. Satu asked why she had come, and she told him the little rabbit had informed her of the danger. Satu was shocked. He discovered that the black rabbit had deceived him. Its real name was Koker, and it was in fact Rose's pet, sent by her to watch over him. Satu was even more stunned and protested that the rabbit had been injured. Rose revealed that the rabbit had only been pretending to win his trust. Poor Satu. Everyone was exploiting his kindness. Rose explained that she had been nearby, ready to intervene if anything happened, but she had not expected the appearance of this creature. The monster he faced was a massive serpent created by the Demon King's army. She added that Commander Sergius had failed to slay it during the last invasion. Rose admitted she never expected the great grizzly to be killed, and said the serpent was so strong that even an entire unit of elite soldiers could not defeat it. Satu was horrified and demanded, how could she expect a beginner like him to fight such a thing? He grew angry and called her a demon. Rose answered that she had never expected him to win, only to gain experience by facing something far stronger than himself, and she confessed she admired him even more for what he had done. The little bear stood protectively between Satu and the terrifying Rose, growling furiously. Satu played with the cub until it suddenly became gentle and affectionate toward him. Satu grew fond of the bear, and Rose remarked, "You are much like me, just as I thought." Then she decided he would take the cub with him, ordering the bear to carry Satu. The little bear happily agreed, glad to be with him. At last, Rose carried them all back home. She did not forget the insults Satu had hurled at her, and the poor boy trembled as she threatened that he would not sleep that night. They left the dangerous forest, and Rose told Satu that today he had proven himself ready to stand at her side on the battlefield. She said, "You have not yet mastered the basics, but you possess the necessary qualities. You can endure pain, you have physical strength, and you possess a strong mind. Be proud of yourself, for you will fight alongside me. The Demon King's army will attack soon." At that same time, the Demon King summoned his third commander, Amila, and asked her about preparations for the invasion of the kingdom of Linger. Amila replied that all her units were ready for battle, and they would soon begin advancing to invade the kingdom. After leaving the throne room, she was deeply uneasy. At that moment, a figure appeared behind her, Herlock, mocking her for being nervous. She snapped back, "If you have time to mock others, focus on your own work." Demon Physician then left without caring for his foolishness. But he told her he had just completed his newest model of demonic beast and led her to see his creation. He had forged a colossal serpent with razor-sharp fangs. Herlock was the Demon Physician who created the serpent beasts. Amila dismissed him, since his serpents had always been defeated. In the last battle, one of his serpents had fled after being wounded by Commander Sergius, but the Demon Physician was confident this serpent was stronger than the last. Amila herself hoped he would succeed this time, for she knew there were individuals in the kingdom of Linger far more dangerous than Sergius. The Demon Physician asked her about the rescuers, those people who stood on the battlefield not to fight, but to carry the wounded to safety. Before the demons realized, their leader was already there, Rose, always on the front lines, healing countless lives in the blink of an eye, and beyond that, a first-class warrior. Amila seethed with hatred for Rose, who had left a deep wound in her master's pride, and swore she would destroy her. But the Demon Physician reminded her that she was the commander this time, and could not personally march into battle. Amila replied that she intended to send that dangerous demon, the immortal dark sorcerer, the Black Knight. Meanwhile, Satu had returned home, longing for sleep, even feeling joy at hearing Tung's loud snoring. Then Blorin woke him, bringing fruit for breakfast. Its taste was delicious, and Satu enjoyed eating it. Soon after, the black rabbit appeared again, begging for some fruit. Satu grew angry and called him traitor, never forgetting how he had toyed with his innocent heart. Yet once more the rabbit deceived him with its gentle eyes, and poor Satu's emotions overcame him. In that moment, Rose entered. She was surprised at the name given to the little bear, but Satu loved it dearly. Blorin nearly bit off Satu's hand trying to share the fruit with him. Rose told them she had informed King Lloyd about the bear, and now they had permission to keep it as the king of the rescue team. She then fixed the cub with a terrifying glare and ordered him to work hard. The poor creature froze in place, terrified by her presence. Satu asked her what she wanted the bear to do. She commanded that it carry Blorin on its back, explaining this training was a simulation of the battlefield. She said, "Imagine the bear as someone in need of rescue. Run at once with him. Satu immediately dashed forward, carrying heavy weights along with the sleeping bear, but quickly adapted thanks to his ability to channel and balance his mana while running. Rose shouted at him to move faster and he increased his pace. Suddenly Tung leapt from behind the bushes, and not only him, but also Milo, who nearly caught Satu. Once again, Satu was trapped with the maniacs, enduring the battlefield simulation Rose had promised. He ran on, carrying Bloren, until after an hour, Gomel burst from beneath the ground, reeking with a foul stench. 3 hours later, Gord hurled massive branches in his path, forcing Satu to leap over them despite the burden of the heavy bear. After 4 hours, Satu began to feel his mana draining completely. Even the black rabbit appeared to block his way. He continued running until every ounce of his strength was gone and collapsed from exhaustion. He had believed he could last at least half a day, but Rose told him, "This is your limit on the battlefield. Because of exhaustion, fear, tension, and lack of patience, your strength was spent faster than usual." She pressed her hand upon his head with healing magic and commanded him to get used to it. He must gain mental endurance and a body that does not falter before fear. Rose told him, "After you recover your mana, spend the afternoon running around the castle town while carrying the bear, Bloren." Satu set off running through the town, and people were shocked to see him carrying a beast on his back while running, but they soon felt reassured when they realized he was a member of the rescue team. Suddenly, the bear Bloren woke up, full of energy after catching the scent of the fruit he had eaten that morning. But Sato had no money to buy anything. At that moment, an old woman told him that this fruit was called Bivel, and it grew only in this kingdom. Sato asked her, "Why is everyone calm even though I am carrying a beast on my back?" She answered, "Because you are part of the rescue team, it is obvious from your uniform. Besides, they are used to it. All the time, they see frightening-looking men from the rescue team running around the town. Of course, no one will fear a fluffy bear carried on your back." Satu wanted to leave, but the old woman kindly gave him the fruit for free since they had met. While Bloren almost devoured Satu's hand along with it, Satu thanked her and continued his run around the town. Then he thought of visiting Kazuki and Suzui since the castle was nearby, but someone had been following him without him noticing. The poor man suffered while running behind him until he collapsed on the ground. Satu noticed him and healed his injuries. The man explained that he was only trying to catch up to greet him, for he was his new comrade. His name was Orca, one of the healers of the rescue team. Orca was surprised when Satu told him his story, that he had been summoned to this world along with 2 heroes. He even expressed admiration for Satu because he had endured Commander Rose's training, something that had been impossible for him and for his younger sister, 5 years his junior. Together they ran a small clinic in the city, treating civilians with healing magic. Satu asked him, "Why didn't you heal yourself earlier?" Orca replied, "Because I am not skilled at healing myself. I am far better at healing others." Satu then realized that there were different kinds of healers. Orca said, "We work under Commander Rose's orders, and we treat the wounded when the need arises." Satu remembered Rose's words when she told him he would stand with her in the front lines to heal the injured. He asked Orca, "What do you do in the battlefield then?" Orca answered, "Tong and the others carry the injured soldiers to the rear, where my sister and I treat them. We are merely supporting members," Satu told him. "But Rose asked me to join her as part of the vanguard." Orca replied, "On the battlefield, knights and heroes who fight at the front lines are always exposed to the greatest dangers. When heroes are wounded, all they can usually do is wait for death. But if there is a healer who moves through the battlefield, they can be saved. Of course, what you will do is dangerous and exhausting, but Commander Rose would never choose someone she didn't fully trust." Satu was deeply moved by Orca's words. Orca said he had to return to the clinic before his sister scolded him, so Satu carried the bear and prepared to resume his training. Before he left, Orca told him, "Do not hate Rose. She is kinder than she appears, despite her harsh behavior." Satu answered, "I never hated Rose, even with her cruelty toward me." As Satu left, Orca's sister appeared, angry with him for going out alone. Satu then headed to the castle to visit Kazuki and Suzui. The guard did not object and allowed him entry with the bear Bloren, since he was Rose's student. Inside the castle, everyone was training hard in preparation for the battle against the demons. Even Suzui was practicing diligently. She was delighted to see Satu and asked him about the fluffy creature on his back. He explained that he had found it while undergoing survival training in a forest full of monsters. Suzui eagerly wanted to touch the bear, but hesitated in fear. Satu reassured her that it was tame and would not do anything unless she provoked it. But the foolish Suzui, convinced that the bear would love her because she was a hero, reached out to touch it, only for the bear to slap her hand away. She blushed in embarrassment, while Satu tried to calm the situation. But ironically, Suzui was happy because she had at least touched the sole of its paw. Satu suggested she try calling the bear by name, thinking it might warm up to her, but when she did, the bear bit her arm instead. Satu commented, "Perhaps you simply have a corrupt spirit." He then tried himself, but even he ended up getting bitten. Afterward, Satu noticed that Suzui's hand was injured. She told him not to worry, saying she had simply overstrained herself during sword practice. Satu healed her hand with magic. The foolish Suzui thought this meant he loved her because he held her hand, but her feelings were crushed when Satu explained that he had not come to see her alone, but also to see Kazuki. She then informed him that Kazuki was not in the kingdom, as he had gone to gain experience in fighting monsters alongside Commander Surgis and the others. Kazuki asked Commander Siglis if it was true that the Demon King's army would attack soon. Siglis confirmed with certainty, saying he was confident they would bring even stronger forces this time. But the soldiers' morale was high thanks to the presence of the two heroes, Kazuki and Suzui. Kazuki then promised that he would give it his all. Suddenly, feral wolves appeared before them, while Satu silently wished for Kazuki's safety. Suzui reassured him that Kazuki would return in just a few days, and once he did, it would be her turn to gain experience, a thought that excited her greatly. Satu told her he was sure she would enjoy it, but she grew jealous and said, "I wish you would worry about me as well." After that, Satu carried the bear Blurine and left, continuing to run until evening to grow stronger, because he wanted to be able to help Kazuki and Suzui when they went to war. He thought to himself that in the past all he ever did was admire people who could do things he could not, but he was no longer that person. He had learned to rely on himself. That night, when he returned home and placed Blurine in his bed, he found Rose waiting for him. She asked how training had gone that day, and he told her that he wished to train longer. Then he asked, "How can I strengthen my resolve? I barely survived the serpent, and even felt fear when the Demon King's army was mentioned. That fear made me not want to set foot on the battlefield. But today, I discovered another feeling far stronger than fear. The will to save Kazuki, Suzui, and everyone else I can, because I am part of the rescue team." Rose was delighted to hear this and told him, "We go out to save lives. Keep those on the verge of death alive, even if it costs you your own. That is our duty, and that is what the rescue team must stand for." Satu grew more motivated than ever, and for the first time truly felt like a member of the rescue team. The next day, as usual, Rose woke him with her harsh methods. She told him that King Lloyd had sent a message yesterday ordering him to join Hiro Suzani's training outside the castle. Satu went with Rose to join Suzui's training. Since the king had commanded it, he could not refuse. Rose informed him that he would act as the healer in this mission. Suzui was overjoyed that Satu would be accompanying her in training through the forest, and even happier that the cute bear Blurine was with them. Foolishly, she thought he brought Blurine to help her get closer to him, but he crushed her feelings coldly by saying, "I didn't bring him for you. I just couldn't leave him alone." Suzui didn't mind and introduced him to the sorceress Corinne and to the knight Arko, who was also the gatekeeper. Rose then warned them that Satu's healing magic was not powerful. He could only tend to minor wounds. Since Suzui had trained under Siglis, Rose had faith in her strength and left without saying anything to Satu. Meanwhile, Kazuki had returned to training, and Prince Yasuo worried for him since he had not rested despite just finishing his forest training. It was clear there was a spark of affection between them. Satu, on the other hand, headed with the team toward the Forest of Linger's darkness, the same place where he had once encountered the bears. He grew anxious, fearing Blurine might feel sorrow and longing for his family. Foolish Suzui tried to take advantage of Blurine's nap to pet him, but this time Satu slapped her hand away, not allowing her to get close. Angry, she snapped, "Where did you learn such vile manners, to slap the hand of a lady like me?" At that moment, Blurine awoke still tired, so Suzui seized the chance to try and carry him on her back to pet him, but he was far too heavy, and she collapsed. Such is the fate of someone who follows her reckless whims. Satu had to use healing magic on her. Suddenly, Corinne sensed the presence of several dangerous creatures ahead. Tension rose, but the threat turned out to be nothing more than a group of bandits seeking to rob them. These fools thought themselves strong, but Suzui was thrilled, delighted to finally see real bandits. The bandits, however, trembled in fear when they saw the bear, though their leader tried to rally them, shouting, "It's still just a cub. It won't harm us. Let's catch it and skin it for fur." Suzui immediately incinerated them with her lightning magic, her insane strength overwhelming. When they persisted, she struck them again with thunderous force. Satu muttered sarcastically that they were nothing more than human targets for a thinking gun. But then, Corinne suddenly sensed the approach of a horde of beasts. A pack of wild boars emerged. Blurine tried to protect Satu while Suzui unleashed her magic, but there were simply too many. Both Satu and Suzui were struck with such force that they were hurled as if to the skies. Satu shielded Suzui with healing magic, but in the end, they crashed into the river, the same river Satu had once fallen into before, and were carried over the edge of a tall waterfall. Moments later, Satu regained consciousness and immediately healed Suzui's wounds. Now they found themselves deep within the forest, surrounded by countless dangerous beasts. They had no food, and thus could not even camp. Darkness was falling, and they urgently needed to find a safe place. That night, Sato decided to sleep atop the trees as he had done before, but Suzani did not like the idea, for she was the daughter of a wealthy family accustomed to living in palaces, so Sato chose a small tunnel to shelter them for that night at least. There, Suzani used her lightning magic to stun the fish and to make sure the place was safe. She then lit a fire with her useful ability, and they spent the night in comfort. As usual, the foolish Suzani remained fascinated by his muscles. But suddenly, a poison tick appeared. Sato warned her not to touch these dangerous creatures, yet she could not resist, and played with it until it bit her, causing her to collapse unconscious. Once again, Sato was forced managed to heal her with recovery magic. Meanwhile, word reached Kazuki that Sato and Suzani were missing in the forest. He grew furious and ignored the king's warnings, deciding to go search for them himself. But Rose stopped him, saying, "I trust Sato. I am certain he is fine, and he will protect Suzani." As for Sato and Suzani, they enjoyed the primitive life, without phones, without television, without any conveniences, only fire warming their bodies. Yet Suzani became sad and asked if he thought of returning home. He answered, "I want to return, but I do not at the same time." Then she told him that she never wished to return no matter what happened, for she loved this world more than their old one. Nothing tied her to it anymore. Here, she lived free without chains, unlike her previous life, for she had always dreamed of such freedom. Sato felt the same way, for in this world his ordinary life had changed, and he had gained a purpose, to help everyone in the kingdom with his healing magic. She told him she too wished to protect this place as the hero. It was clear that a spark of love had ignited between them, making Sato blush until he pretended to sleep, fleeing from the embarrassing moment. At dawn, they continued searching in the forest. Suddenly, they sensed danger approaching, but it was Blorin the bear, appearing full of excitement. Moments later, Arko the knight emerged, exhausted, collapsing after chasing Blorin, who had followed Sato's scent. The bear felt nostalgia for his old family, for that place had once been his den. Yet he restrained himself, for now he considered Sato his new family, and so they returned from their tedious forest training. King Lloyd apologized to Sato and Suzani for putting them in such a difficult position. But the foolish Sato nearly exposed Rose before the king when he said, "I am used to such things." Flustered, he added, "I often explored forests in my former world too." He even lied, claiming his training was going well with the rescue team, for if he revealed the truth about Rose's harsh training, she would make him her punching bag. The king then ordered them to leave and rest, yet Sato remained afraid of being expelled at any moment. At that time, Kazuki caught up with them, worried sick, nearly entering the forest himself to search. Suzani scolded him, "You are so reckless, Kazuki." Sato replied mockingly, "And have you forgotten how you were bitten by the poison tick because of your recklessness?" Embarrassed, Suzani covered his mouth so he would not expose her. Indeed, they were a strange pair. Later, they sat together outside, and Kazuki told him that Rose trusted him. But Sato said it was impossible for him to trust such a cruel woman. Kazuki then bid them farewell, noticing that the two had grown closer than before. Princess Celia remarked that Sato seemed very happy whenever he was beside Suzani. He replied, "Perhaps because we are from the same world." Celia's face revealed her jealousy of their bond. Meanwhile, King Lloyd informed Rose and Commander Saiglas that they had interrogated the bandits who attacked Sato and his companions. From them, they learned that the number of monsters in the region was far fewer than usual, which meant they had fled from something terrifying approaching the kingdom. It was likely that the Demon King's army had finally begun to move. Commander Saiglas confirmed that this time the Demon King's army would be stronger than before, and would seek to invade the kingdom as quickly as possible. The king ordered him to prepare all units, ready to deploy the forces at a moment's notice. He also asked Rose to locate the Demon King's army, since she was the fastest in the kingdom. Before she left, he requested her to consider leading the soldiers again, but Rose refused, saying, "I am the only seer who reached such a high level, but I do not wish to lead again." Rose refused because the tragic memories of her past still haunted her. She had lost her men before her very eyes and could not heal the dead. She bore a scar on her right eye, a constant reminder of her guilt. She said, "This scar is my punishment so that I never forget. That is why I created the rescue team. I wanted to lead a unit that saves others instead of fighting." Then she added to the king, "I want a follower who does not die." The king was shocked, saying such a thing was impossible for humans. But she answered, "I always search for someone with 3 traits: healing magic, the ability to surpass human limits, and the mental resilience to endure everything. And finally, I have found him. It is Sato. I consider him my ideal follower, because he is someone who hates losing and never gives up." She said that he resembled the little boy who had died in her arms, and for that reason, she decided to make Oto her ideal healer. That night, Osu returned to the rescue team's headquarters, where he found that the leader had left him a message. She told him he would not be training tomorrow, and that he must deliver this message to the address marked on the map. At the same time, the Demon King's army, led by Amila, was nearing completion of the bridge that would allow them to cross into the kingdom. With them was the arrogant Black Knight. Amila expressed her anger at him, saying, "You will follow me and obey my orders." Meanwhile, the Dr. Herlock laughed at her because she had failed to control the situation properly. Amila was planning to invade the kingdom of Linger as soon as the bridge was complete, but at that very moment, a figure appeared on the other side. At first, she paid no attention, but suddenly, he hurled a massive log that destroyed the bridge. Amila was shocked, for all their efforts had gone to waste. The surprise was that the figure was none other than Leader Rose. Amila grew furious with her, and it seemed there was a pass between them. Afterward, Rose withdrew, having successfully delayed the Demon King's army's plan. thanks to her, they had gained a few more days to prepare for the coming war against the Demon King's army. Meanwhile, Ost set out directly to find the address on the map. People were surprised at his calm demeanor, for they were used to members of the rescue team always running around like madmen. He continued on his way until he finally reached the address, where he was welcomed by Floor, the younger sister of Urga. He was now inside the clinic run by the healer along with some of her companions. Urga was treating a small child, and Ost was astonished at the color and shape of the mana, for Urga had healed the child within seconds. At that moment, Urga noticed Odo's presence, and Osu handed him the message sent by Leader Rose. Floor asked him how the rest of the rescue team was doing. He replied that their faces were still as frightening as ever. Floor smiled, for she missed them, but she admitted that she could not endure Leader Rose's training as Osu did. Urga's expression suddenly changed when he read Rose's message. It seemed that the news was ominous, so he hid the message from his sister. Floor, however, began to recount her story with Rose, saying that when she first joined the rescue team, Rose had been extremely eager to train them, but they could not keep up with her. Urga had grown afraid of her, for she was rather strict and harsh. Yet Floor told him that Rose had been happier lately. Ost thought to himself that perhaps she was happier because she had found a new punching bag, like Osu. Just then, a man came rushing in to tell Urga that a disaster had occurred outside. Someone had fallen from the roof onto two others. Urga, exhausted from keeping pace with Ost, nevertheless hurried to treat the injured. He then asked Ost to heal one of the men, who was in critical condition with a deep wound. It was the first time Ost had faced such a severe injury, for previously, he had only healed surface wounds. He trembled with hesitation and fear, but he reminded himself that war was approaching, and he would have to deal with wounds far worse than this. Urga encouraged him, saying, "Calm yourself and focus on your mana. You have the strength to heal this man. All you need is to trust your own power." Ost thought to himself, "Even Rose trusts me, so how can I not trust myself?" Then he concentrated on his mana, released a powerful healing spell, and succeeded in treating the man's injury. Urga thanked him for his help, while Floor said, "You were amazing." The man was astonished, for he no longer felt any pain. Urga then asked Ost to come help at the clinic whenever he was free. Ost bid them farewell, promising to return again. Urga seized the chance to inform his sister about Rose's important message, which was a warning to prepare for war. It seemed the Demon King's army was on the verge of invading the kingdom, and since Ost was still a beginner with no battle experience like his sister Floor, Urga wanted her to trust in her ability to assist Leader Rose. Later, Ost stopped by the old man to buy some fruit for the bear Blorin, whom he loved. On his way back, he encountered a girl, and then came the surprise. She told him, "You are the only one who can see me, and you have the power to change the future." Suddenly, her eyes changed, and she made him witness the future. He saw what would happen in the war. The Demon King's army would slaughter all the soldiers, and the Black Knight would kill his companions Kazuki and Suzani. A tragic future awaited them, and he could barely breathe from the horror of the vision. The girl who had shown him the future said, "This was a great revelation, and its response will be your responsibility." Then she disappeared. Ost stood stunned by the dreadful scenes he had just witnessed. He searched for the girl who had shown him the future, but she had vanished. Yet from a distance, she watched him and whispered, "Ost is my only hope." Ost kept searching for her, and even asked the guard, but he had not seen her either. Frustrated, Ost cried out, weary of searching. At that moment, Commander Rose appeared. The guard Thomas, terrified at the sight of her, fled at once as though he had seen a monster. Poor Ost, however, was not so lucky. He was caught by her, and she squeezed his head mercilessly for no reason. She told him that she had been in the outskirts of the kingdom, scouting the Demon King's army, and she had seen them building a bridge to cross the river into their lands. She told him that she destroyed the bridge and bought some time for the kingdom. Ost was surprised by her strange behavior, and she once again squeezed his head. After that, he asked about a girl from the elf race, and Rose explained that this girl had suddenly appeared in the kingdom about 2 years ago. She had managed to escape the bandits who had kidnapped her, even though she was only 12 years old. Ost wondered why they wanted to kidnap her in the first place, and Rose told him that beast races like hers were considered valuable prey, for some of them possessed unique types of magic. Ost replied, like her ability to show others strange illusions. He then told her that this girl had made him see terrifying nightmares and a dreadful future. Rose said, "I have heard of beast races known as time seers, who can glimpse the future. They are extremely rare and heavily protected in the beast territories." Ost grew more anxious about the dark future awaiting him, for if that girl truly was a time seer, then the future she had shown him was real. Rose then ordered him to return home while she went to see King Lloyd, presenting him with a report of what had happened and what she had done against the Demon King's army. The king thanked her for delaying the enemy's invasion, but Rose said, "That does not matter. I am certain they are already building a new bridge at this very moment, and they will finish it within a few days at most. When that happens, they will invade the kingdom. King Lloyd then decided to inform all the soldiers and citizens the next day about the Demon King's army's intention to invade. He ordered the Night Seagulls to inform Suzani and Kazuki that very night. Seagulls went and summoned them immediately, and they were both puzzled as to why they had been called so suddenly at such a late hour. On their way, they encountered Princess Celia, who blushed shyly every time she looked at Kazuki. At last, they arrived before King Lloyd. Meanwhile, Ost returned home. As usual, he could not sleep, not because of Tong's snoring, but because he was thinking too much about the dreadful future he had seen. The girl had told him that he alone could change the future, and now he wondered if there was a way to prevent what he had witnessed. Yet he did not trust himself, nor did he know how he would accomplish it. Suddenly, lights fluttered around his window, and foolish Ost was frightened, thinking they were ghosts, until he realized it was Kazuki calling to him with magic. They sat together outside, and Kazuki told him that the king had summoned them that night and informed them that war against the Demon King's army would begin soon. Kazuki was not surprised by this news. Rather, he was excited for the coming war. He said, "Because of this news, I could not sleep. I left the castle and came here without thinking." Then he began to tremble and admitted to Ost that he was afraid of fighting. Even when he had first left the capital to battle monsters for training, he had been terrified and froze in place the first time he saw them. But eventually, he managed to fight, realizing that he had to muster courage and overcome fear. Now, upon hearing about the Demon King's army, his fear had returned stronger than ever. Yet he could not retreat or run away, because the people of this kingdom had been so kind to him, and they expected great things from him. Ost told him, "You are a fine young man in the end. I know you suffer from immense pressure because everyone depends on you, but you do not always need to live up to their expectations. It is all right to give priority to your own feelings from time to time." Kazuki then asked, "And what will you do in this war?" Ost answered, "I will go to save the people who will fight the Demon King's army. I was afraid at first, just like you, but I have already made my decision." Kazuki said, "How can you throw your life away for this world that you were dragged into by mistake?" Ost replied, "I will not deny that the way I was brought here was unpleasant, but many things have happened since then. I met many people who helped me become someone important. That is why I want to save them all. And even if you never fight as a hero, you are still my friend." Kazuki was deeply moved by these words. He slapped his own face to shake off his fear and said, "I have made my decision. I will fight to protect you." And Suzani Ost tried to calm him down and urged him to reconsider, but Kazuki had already resolved himself. He could no longer be afraid or turn back. He then said, "I feel so much better when you two are by my side. That is why I am excited to fight, for the sake of protecting you." Ost replied, "Then let us protect this kingdom and its people together." Kazuki was overjoyed to have met Ost, thanked him, and departed. As for Ost, he wished to return to sleep, but Zoni appeared, having overheard his entire conversation with Kazuki. He told her that he was tired and wanted to rest, but eccentric Zoni, as always, acted strangely. She told him that she had been following Kazuki because she was worried about him, but she felt relieved now that she saw he had made his decision and was determined to fight. Ost told her, "Honestly, I still do not want him to fight." Suddenly, Suzani grabbed him and asked, "Do you not want me to fight as well?" He answered, "Of course I do not, but you are different from Kazuki. You have chosen to remain in this world." Indeed, Suzani agreed with his words, bid him farewell, and departed. The next day, King Lloyd announced to all the soldiers of the kingdom that the Demon King's army had breached their borders and would soon reach the kingdom. Therefore, the king declared that they would intercept them in the green fields, affirming that the Demon King's army would be stronger than before, and thus this battle would not be easy. However, the kingdom itself had also grown stronger thanks to the presence of the hero Suzani, the hero Kazuki, and the rescue team, who had greatly aided them 2 years prior. All the citizens of the kingdom listened to the king's speech in fear, but he reassured them and affirmed that the kingdom of Linger would prevail and that he himself would march the next day to face the Demon King's army. Afterward, hero Kazuki went to see Princess Celia, who rejoiced at seeing him before he left for war. He told her that he would protect the kingdom from the Demon King's army, no matter the cost. Celia, who loved him dearly, was filled with both affection and fear for him. Elsewhere, Flora was greatly enamored with the bear Bloren and was excited to play with him, but he crushed her feelings by refusing to let her approach him no matter how much she tried to touch him. The bear continuously pushed her away, and then the rabbit Kokoro appeared, but even he fled from her and would not allow her to touch him. Both of them broke her heart, as Bloren kept slapping her hands away until she burst into tears, while Urga struggled with carrying the luggage. At that moment, Osu came to help him, while foolish Flora refused to give up and kept trying to play with the bear, who continued to smack her hands relentlessly. Urga then said to Osu, "In truth, Flora is extremely nervous, for this is her first battle. She is only trying to distract herself by playing with Bloren." Meanwhile, Tong told Ost that the leader was calling for him in her chambers. Ost was stunned, for this was the first time Rose had summoned him to her room. He began trembling in fear, imagining she wanted to torture him again. But when he entered, he found her calm and serious, wanting to speak with him. She asked him if he remembered the role she had assigned to him in battle, and he recalled that he was to heal the wounded by her side in the vanguard. She told him, "That is correct, but we will not advance to the front lines immediately. Tong and the others will tend to the wounded in the rear, and we will join them with Urga and Floor. There is no point in going to the vanguard before there are injured, for the front will be an easy target for the enemy." She then warned him, "Do not make mistakes in using healing magic. If a soldier sustains only a minor injury and you rush to heal him in the midst of battle, you will find yourself caught between ally and enemy at the most dangerous moment. You must quickly decide who truly needs healing and who does not." Rose then presented him with a box, and when he opened it, he found inside the official rescue team uniform. She said to him, "This uniform was made so that you would stand out on the battlefield." Ost was overwhelmed with joy at the splendid uniform and put it on at once, appearing dignified and proud. But suddenly, Rose pulled him close and said, "Remember, healers are not immortal. If you die, then your presence will mean nothing. The most important thing you can do on the battlefield is preserve your own life." Ost replied that he understood, for he had no wish to die. But Rose struck him and said, "Stop spouting such nonsense. I have known people who died after saying the very same words. I have also known fools who regretted them so much they longed for death. Do not belittle your life. The true duty of a rescuer is to protect himself as well. Do not do something foolish like throwing away your life, or I will kill you myself before the enemy ever reaches you." Ost answered her with confidence, "Then I will carry everyone, myself included." Rose was impressed by his confidence and courage. Ost left her chambers, recalling the dark future that awaited him, and declared with firm resolve, "I will not allow that to happen. I will not let Kazuki or Suzani die." Soon after, the rescue team's caravan set out to join the war and face the demon army's attack. Floor quickly grew bored, for they had not even reached the halfway point of their journey. Someone told her, "It is only natural that the camp is far from the kingdom. We cannot be too close when fighting the demons." But Ost, still bewildered, asked the leader, "What do the demons even look like?" She answered him that demons were humanoid beings who bore twisted horns upon their heads, and what truly set them apart from humans was their immense physical strength and their ability to absorb vast amounts of mana. This meant they surpassed humans by a great margin, for even their ordinary soldiers were far stronger than human counterparts. Ost felt tense, but he was not afraid of demons, for to him, Commander Rose was far more terrifying than they could ever be. Rose then praised him, saying, "Even though you were dragged into our world by mistake, I never expected you to be this strong." He replied, "Your harsh training is enough to turn even a mouse into a beast not to be underestimated." At that moment, Rose remembered her fallen comrades and placed her hand upon the eye she had lost in the previous war. Her mind drifted back to the events of 5 years earlier, when she had been the commander of the Linger Knights Battalion. At that time, King Lloyd informed them that demons had been sighted in the green fields near the dark woods of Linger, a matter both troubling and dangerous for the kingdom. Therefore, the king ordered guards to accompany merchants traveling through the green fields, and he warned the generals and higher-ranking officers never to engage in battle with demons, for they were far stronger than humans. Rose, however, reacted with cold indifference and paid little heed to the king's words, while Siglis was fearful, believing that the demons intended to invade the kingdom. He began to think of mobilizing their forces quickly, in preparation for the danger he dreaded. Even Rose herself began to ponder the matter, and said they needed to gather more information about the demons, considering sending scouts to uncover their plans. Yet her deputy, Ol, interrupted her with chatter, so Rose struck her on the head, making Ol cry out, "You possess overwhelming strength. You could have killed me." Rose replied coldly, "I did this so you would learn to stay calm when others are thinking, instead of prattling without pause." Then she added, "I never imagined the demons would begin to appear." Still, she struck her once more. Afterward, Rose left the castle. Ol was full of excitement and confidence that she could face the demons, but Rose snapped at her, shouting, "Do not underestimate the enemy, you fool." She then told her there would be training after midday. They returned to the Rescue Guild headquarters, where Rose glared at them with a terrifying gaze and declared she would train them mercilessly that day. The others began to blame Ol, for she was the one who had provoked the commander, and because of her, they would now suffer Rose's brutal training. All pleaded desperately with Rose for mercy, but Rose ignored her, leaving her to endure the torment with the rest of the team. A week later, King Lloyd reported to Rose that the demons had begun attacking beasts within their own lands, and had encroached upon the kingdom's borders. Rose herself witnessed a group of powerful demon soldiers relentlessly striking down the beasts of the royal forest. Thus, the king ordered her to investigate the cause of this sudden, abnormal behavior. He told her that if necessary, she could use force to repel them, assuring her of his trust in her wisdom, that she would not strike unless truly required. Rose accepted with confidence, declaring she would succeed in this mission. That night, she returned to the guild and informed everyone that they would depart at dawn to investigate the dark woods of Linger. One of the girls remarked that the task would be difficult, and the situation prone to violence, while Ol was brimming with excitement at the prospect of facing the enemy. The rest of the team, however, grew angry and refused to listen listen to her, for because of her, they had endured an entire week of Rose's hellish training. Still, all continued to chatter incessantly until her companions, exasperated, beat her with every kind of pot and pan, sparking a small civil war among them. Rose simply stood watching without intervening. She then told Kokoro that he would remain at the guild this time and not accompany them to the dark woods of Linger. Though his ability to sense monsters would have been of great aid, she refused to risk exposing him to danger, as the demons might target him. All, now in tears, begged Rose to stop her comrades, but Rose roared at them that the time for games was over, and the moment for seriousness had come. They were to prepare for the mission. All were overjoyed to hear that Rose herself would be accompanying them, for they trusted in her strength as a warrior and in her healing magic. With her by their side, they were ready to fight with all their might and without fear. At dawn, they set out with Rose toward the dark woods of Linger. A full day passed without discovering anything, and at night they set up camp. All suggested that they explore the western side of the forest the following day, since they had found nothing thus far. But one of them objected, saying that region was extremely dangerous. Even All herself admitted to feeling uneasy about the western side, sensing that something ominous awaited them there. Still, the others encouraged her, reminding her of her position as deputy commander. Embarrassed, she changed the subject, only to discover that everyone had already gone to sleep, leaving her alone on watch. Rose, however, told her to rest, saying she would take her place in keeping guard. Everyone settled into slumber, and Rose remained alone by the fire. Yet she knew All was merely pretending to sleep, and was still awake. Rose sat beside her and asked why she thought she had been chosen as her deputy. All answered, "I am far too ordinary compared to the others in our unit. I have no qualities that would make me worthy of being deputy commander. All I ever do is write reports and send requests for supplies," she told her. And Rose replied, "You are doing well. No one has complained about you, and I may one day entrust the command of this unit to you." All was stunned by that, and Rose continued, "I cannot lead this unit forever, so I will hand the command to you someday. And if you refuse and think it impossible, then you will not be able to do what I do." Rose then leveled a sharp rebuke. She called All exceedingly stubborn, prone to rejecting orders she disliked, and refusing to relent even when proven wrong, uncontrollable by others. And if anyone dared to complain, she would crush them with her strength. Thus, Rose regarded All as an ordinary recruit unworthy of succeeding her. All answered that she had been a strong recruit, but had failed to heed her superiors, and when Rose met her, she used to beat her whenever she disobeyed, and drove her out beyond the borders. Even when All attempted resistance, Rose struck her so hard that she lost consciousness and the memories of what had occurred. Yet All would not allow Rose to outshine her. No matter how arduous the training, she resolved to succeed, for she hated losing and would never surrender however severe the trial. All told Rose, "You are the only one who cared for me without giving up despite my stubbornness and refusal of your orders at first. I was annoyed by you at first, but in the end I was glad because I found a wonderful teacher in you. You understand me better than anyone, and for that reason, you are the only one who can be our leader." Rose struck her again, and All, astonished, cried, "I cannot believe this is your reply after all those kind words." Rose answered coolly, "I did not choose you as deputy at random. I decided with confidence because you do not give up, and you keep looking forward no matter the circumstances. This is the mindset of a true leader. If you persist in what you do, others will follow you of their own accord." All brimmed with joy at these words, and Rose added, "Nothing remains as it is forever, and you will not be able to advance if you do not accept that." Rose then decided to sleep and left All to stand watch. All was shocked to learn that all her comrades had overheard her conversation with the commander and told her they trusted her as their deputy, whereupon she blushed in embarrassment and ran after them, lightly striking them one by one. The next morning, they resumed the search in the forest, and when they reached the western side, they found claw marks, footprints, and fresh blood. Most of them concluded that the demons were indeed hunting the beasts, yet they wondered what purpose there was in entering human territory to hunt the beasts and worried at the implications. Suddenly, they heard the beasts' lamentations, and Rose ordered them to take battle formation at once. They rushed toward the sound and found demons slaughtering the forest wolves. Rose and those with her attempted to remain hidden and silent, but the leader of the demon band sensed their presence, forcing Rose to reveal herself and step forward to confront the demon commander Nero, asking why they were trespassing into human lands. Nero replied that he was not personally interested in the mission, yet he had no other choice given the benefits derived from these beasts. When Rose pressed him to explain what mission he meant, he refused to disclose it. Rose did not desire an open battle and ordered him to return to his lands quietly, but Nero, unafraid of her, said, "I cannot let you leave alive after what I have seen. You must all die." Rose relinquished command to Ol because she could not issue orders while facing that demon, and a courage gathered in Ol's breast as she prepared to stand against the demons. Then, Rose darted forward at full speed toward the demon Nero, while Ol led the rescue squad to confront the rest of the demons. Nero unleashed wind magic like a blade, cutting everything in his path. But Rose evaded his attack with incredible agility, and in a single instant she reached him. Yet he managed to block her strike with a windshield, stunned by her speed and unable to believe she was an ordinary human. Rose attacked again, but he avoided her blow with wind magic, only for her to suddenly drive a powerful strike into him, sending him crashing into the trees. Even so, the force of his winds injured her as well. Undeterred, she pursued him deeper into the forest, slipping past his magical tricks. When she caught up, she lifted a massive tree with one hand and hurled it at him. Not stopping there, she bombarded him with dozens more trees, which Nero shredded with wind magic. At that moment, Rose tricked him, dropping a colossal tree on him, but Nero emerged from beneath it, cloaked in wind, more exhilarated than ever to continue the fight. Rose tried to strike again, but Nero conjured a shield of wind that enveloped his body. He said, "I have never seen a human this strong. You deserve praise, even if you are my enemy." Rose sneered, "You can chatter all you like, after I smash your face." Suddenly, Nero surrounded her with a raging gale, trapping her within a storm of slicing winds. Her body was being torn, yet she refused to yield, forcing her way through the barrier. Nero thought it over, only to be shocked when Rose invoked healing magic and emerged unscathed from his spell. He realized then she was a healer and said, "Your overwhelming physical strength combined with instant regeneration makes you a terrifying close-range fighter." Determined, he drew forth a cursed blade from the depths of hell. Rose, unfazed, was confident of her victory, and the battle escalated once more. The demon army was formidable, but the humans resisted, refusing defeat. One warrior cast sleep magic, while all fought with all her magical might. Rose clashed with Nero's demonic blade, a cursed weapon that she dared not allow to touch her. Nero lunged swiftly, grazing her with a strike, but she retaliated with a devastating punch that distorted his face, then followed with a surge of magic that hurled him through the air. She pursued him, healing her wound mid-stride and mocking him. Nero rose, laughing darkly, noticing his soldiers faltering despite facing mere humans. "You and your followers are troublesome indeed," he said. "You are the most vexing group I have ever met. There are no longer humans of great power left in this world." Rose retorted, "And do you think you can defeat us just because we no longer have heroes? If so, you are gravely underestimating us." Nero replied, "The era of demons fearing humans will soon end, for our king shall claim victory." Suddenly, a terrifying demonic aura erupted from Nero, his fury blazing as he vowed to bring triumph to his king and prosperity to the demons, determined to annihilate Rose and her squad. At that moment, a girl stabbed one of the demons and thought it finished, only to be horrified as the wounded demon rose and seized her. Stunned, she wondered, "Why is this demon still strong despite such a grievous wound?" The demon snarled, "We are the Demon King's blades. Even if we crumble into dust, we shall drag our enemies down with us." Rose rushed to intervene, but Nero blocked her path. Then the disaster struck. One of the demons killed the girl outright, leaving the squad in shock at the tragic sight of their fallen comrade. Rose was overwhelmed with rage at the demons, and matters did not stop there, for the demons immediately slew another human. In an instant, they changed, attacking humans mercilessly, unafraid of death. It was Nero who drove them into this frenzy with the cursed power of his blade, shouting, "Now I am a true demon, and I have urged my followers to embrace death and drag the humans down with them." Rose's fury blazed and she lost control of herself. She charged at Nero with reckless force, but he exploited her weakness and slashed her eye with his demonic sword. It was a catastrophe for the humans. When Rose attempted to heal her wound, she discovered in horror that her healing magic had vanished. Nero told her that his crimson blade severs mana, leaving wounds cursed and impossible to heal. Her companions screamed for her aid, begging for her healing magic, but she could not use it. Her squad was struck down one by one. Refusing surrender, Rose attacked again, but Nero severed her leg with his demonic might. She was left in a pitiful state, half blind and unable to see properly. Nero advanced to finish her, while Rose drifted into unconsciousness until he swung his blade in a killing strike, only for all to intervene, taking the fatal blow in her place. It was a tragic sight. Rose watched her comrades die before her eyes, powerless to protect them. Memories of the joyful moments with them surged back, and she cried in sorrow. "They believed in me and trusted that none of them would die as long as I was here, but they were all slain, and I could not protect them, because I was too weak, because I was blinded by arrogance in my strength." Nero loomed over her, declaring coldly, "I will never forget the deaths of my followers nor those of yours." Rose's rage ignited. She caught his demonic sword with a single hand, landed a crushing punch, and seized his cursed blade. She pummeled him relentlessly, shouting, "How dare you sacrifice your soldiers? You are nothing but a vile wretch." Nero tried to flee with wind magic, but Rose caught him, slammed him into the ground again and again, then kicked and struck him with all her might, before impaling him against a tree with his own cursed sword. Rose had lost her humanity, consumed by a monstrous fury bent only on his destruction. Yet dizziness overcame her, her body failing her strength. Suddenly, Amila, the demoness, appeared weeping for her master Nero. Nero urged her to escape, but she clung to him desperately, trying to save him. Rose faltered at the sight and murmured, "How can a wretch who treats his soldiers as pawns still have someone who wishes to save him, just as all wished to save me?" In that moment, reminded of Ole, Rose could not strike. She let Amila flee, carrying her master away. Then Ole, on the brink of death, called to her teacher. Rose knelt beside her, trying to heal her with frantic magic, but Ole whispered through broken breath, "It is impossible. My wound is too deep. It cannot be healed." Rose refused, desperately attempting to mend her wounds, but it was futile. Ole smiled faintly. "I regret nothing. I was glad to give my life for you. I was proud to be your follower. Just remain the one I respect." And with those final words, she closed her eyes and passed away. Rose screamed in anguish, her voice tearing through the night for all and her fallen comrades. She returned to the kingdom of Linger, reporting to King Lloyd that the Demon King would rise soon to invade their land. Before departing, she asked the king to accept her resignation from leading the battalion, stripped off her knighthood, and said, "I no longer have the right to call myself a knight." She took her leave and departed. As she walked through the streets of the kingdom, a man and his wife approached, telling her their son had served under her command. Rose froze, remembering that knight who had also perished in that battle. She bowed her head in grief and said, "Your son died because of me." The mother thanked Rose despite everything, saying to her, "Because of you, we saw our son live happily. He was always smiling ever since he began serving under your command." Rose departed with humility, then returned to her home, which had become empty, holding nothing but the memories of her fallen comrades. She was consumed by regret for what had happened because of her. After a month, Rose slowly began to recover, and Sagles came to check on her. She had remained alone in the house for an entire month. He was angry with her for refusing to return to her unit, and he noticed that the wounds left by the demon sword had begun to heal. He asked her why she would not exert effort to heal her right eye, but Rose refused to speak about it until he left. She said to herself, "This scar is the mark of my sin for allowing my comrades to die. It is my punishment so that I never forget their deaths, and I cannot allow myself to die, because they sacrificed their lives to keep me alive." Rose no longer knew what she ought to do. She thought of taking vengeance on all demons, but the words of Ole echoed in her ears, for Ole had begged her not to lose her humanity by walking that path. Thus Rose remained in her house without a clear purpose, haunted by the laughter of her fallen comrades. She said, "I never realized I was this weak. I never realized I was this fragile. I have become nothing more than a fool who failed to protect her followers." Suddenly, she heard the voice of Ole, who appeared before her saying, "Nothing remains the same forever. Everything changes, and you will not be able to move forward unless you accept that truth." Rose was moved by her words. Ole repeated her last request. "We want you to remain the person we respect." Then the spirits of all her comrades appeared, smiling as they said, "You are our harsh leader, and it is not in your nature to let anything break you. If we had seen you like this, we would have beaten you ourselves. Even though we are dead, we remain proud to have been led by you." Rose burst into tears, crying out, "This will be the last time I ever appear weak." At that moment, the spirit of Ole faded, knowing her leader had returned to her true self. Rose declared, "I will be someone all of you can respect." Rose knew that a tremendous battle against the demons was approaching, one that would claim countless lives. She resolved to save as many as she could in the war to come. To achieve this, she decided to form a special unit dedicated to saving lives, soldiers who would allow no one to die. She declared she would need at least 5 people to establish the rescue squad, and she added that she needed someone strong like herself, a healer capable of racing across the battlefield and eliminating threats. She said, "If I can find someone like that, then I can fight alongside my comrades without losing them." Then she smiled and said, "I have found what I was searching for. It is Osu." Osu was shocked, for this was the first time she had praised him. Rose told him, "You do not understand the value of your very existence. Not just any healer can become as strong as you through training alone." Osu felt joy at her words, but Rose suddenly struck him with a painful blow that wiped the smile from his face. Then she praised him again, saying, "You possess every quality I desired in a healer. You accomplish things no one else can, and I am certain that you will not die." Their journey to confront the demon army in the Greenlands continued. Meanwhile, on the other side, the demon army had finally completed construction of the bridge. Amila longed to avenge her master Nero, while the Black Knight burned with anticipation for battle. Amila told him that this time he could unleash his full strength, and he replied confidently that he would win, scoffing at the humans. But Amila warned him, "There are troublesome opponents among the humans. I speak of the healers who steal the wounded from our grasp." The Black Knight laughed and said, "Why should I worry about people who do nothing but run away all the time?" Yet Amila warned him once more, "Those you think are mere cowards who flee are true monsters in disguise." The Black Knight grew even more excited when he learned that among the humans there were formidable individuals, for he longed to unleash the full extent of his demonic power. At that very moment, Ostbaker awoke, for the fated day had arrived. The war against the demon army had begun. Suzani too rose early, proudly flaunting before Ost the hero's armor she would don, a piece forged exclusively for her, designed to enhance her thunder magic. Yet Suzani boasted excessively, and Ost could only stare in bewilderment at her strange gestures and overwhelming enthusiasm. The poor boy became entangled as she tried to draw closer to him, forcing him to cry out at the top of his voice for rescue, until Kazuki intervened and saved him from the madwoman's antics. Fortunately, Kazuki succeeded in convincing her to leave with him and cease her teasing of Ost. Meanwhile, all the Knights of Humanity were preparing for the clash with the demon army. Their plan relied upon a group of powerful mages who would unleash a devastating magical strike the moment the demon army revealed itself. Kazuki and Suzani's role was to engage the enemy soldiers directly, to carve an opening within the demon ranks and reach their commander, should they be able to slay him. Kazuki noticed Suzani's unease, and she blushed, masking it with feigned eagerness. He said to her, "You have changed from how you were in our former world." She replied, "That is true, and it is thanks to Ost, who encouraged me to be the person I wish to be." At that instant, they both felt the enemy's approach, and soon the demon army appeared in full force. The human soldiers enacted their plan, unleashing all their spells in one overwhelming barrage. Yet the shock was unbearable, for what they struck was nothing but an illusion. The demons had deceived them and launched their attack from behind. At the same time, Rose was preparing the rescue squad. She ordered all clad in black to head into the battlefield, to retrieve the wounded swiftly and return them to the tents, most important of all, to return alive. Orga and Aurora were tasked with treating the injured within the tents, while the knight Arco was charged with their protection. Rose then turned to Ost and told him he would accompany her once the number of casualties grew, but for now he was to remain in the tents and heal those brought in. Ost, however, was stricken with worry, his heart heavy with fear for Kazuki and Suzani. Suddenly Tong returned at breathtaking speed, bearing wounded upon his back, and Ost was stunned by his swiftness. Hastily, he set about healing them. In that moment, one of the wounded gasped out that a colossal serpent was fighting alongside the demons. Ost's mind raced. He remembered the enormous serpent he had once faced alone in the forest. Yet there was no time for thought. He had to focus wholly on saving lives. Indeed, the monstrous serpent appeared, and terror seized the soldiers' hearts. From afar, the Black Knight observed, mocking the frailty of men. Yet, in an instant, a soldier struck from behind and disaster struck. It was not the Black Knight who was harmed, but the soldier himself, for the knight casually drew his blade and his body healed at once. The soldier tried to flee, desperate to warn the others of this foe's danger, but the Black Knight pursued him with killing intent. At that moment, Osso intervened, using his foul water to blind and deceive the knight, snatching the soldier to safety. The Black Knight's thoughts turned to Amila's warning of the Snatchers, who would steal the wounded from the demon's grasp. Fury ignited within him, and he unleashed his full demonic might, vowing to slaughter every human in his path. It was then he sensed the powerful thunder magic of Suzani, and his excitement soared. He charged straight toward her, determined to strike her down. At the same time, Rose realized the moment had come. She and Ost would leave the tents and join the fray. Entrusting the care of the injured to Orga and Aurora, she raced with Ost at her side toward the heart of the battlefield. Roz warned Ost, telling him she had heard from one of the wounded that there was an enemy clad in black armor, wielding dangerous magic. Ost was stunned when he heard this, for he remembered the grim future awaiting him, where the one in black armor was destined to kill his friends. Because of this, he stopped running alongside Roz, so she decided to teach him a special technique to ensure he would not die in this battle. She told him that she would move left while he would go right. Ost was taken aback by the horror of the battlefield, which he was seeing for the first time. He noticed a demon about to kill a wounded soldier, so he rushed swiftly and snatched the soldier away. One of the demons blocked his path, but Ost evaded the attack with agility and fled carrying the wounded soldier, while Roz crushed the demons with her overwhelming strength, carrying the injured in both arms as the enemy stood shocked at her monstrous power. Meanwhile, Suzani was fighting with her mighty thunder magic, and thanks to it they managed to defeat most of the enemies in their area, but deep down she was afraid and tense, hiding it from Kazuki by feigning confidence. Kazuki mentioned the giant serpent that had appeared before his men, but Suzani dismissed it, determined instead to open the path toward the enemy commander. At that moment, the Black Knight appeared before them, and everyone was shocked, not knowing who this armored demon was. Suzani warned them of his danger, insisting he was unlike any demon they had faced so far. The soldiers ignored her warning and charged straight at him. Kazuki was bewildered by the fact that the Black Knight did not react at all, even allowing them to stab him. But then catastrophe struck. Sharp blades emerged from his body, and the soldiers who had stabbed him were wounded as if they had stabbed themselves. Kazuki recklessly launched his own attack, hurling his light magic at the Black Knight. Despite Suzani's attempt to stop him, the spell struck the knight's shoulder. It was then that Suzani realized his terrifying ability. He possessed reversal magic, meaning every strike dealt to him would return to its source. The Black Knight was impressed by Suzani, acknowledging her as the only one to discern his ability before she would perish at his hands. Yet he said coldly, "Even if you know my power, your fate is still death." Elsewhere, Ost ran desperately to save his companions, haunted still by the vision of that bleak future. Though he tried repeatedly to heal himself with recovery magic, the vision of Kazuki and Suzani dying at the hands of the Black Knight clouded his mind, leaving him paralyzed. Yet he managed to rescue the soldier he had saved earlier and asked him about the hero's whereabouts. The soldier told him they were likely at the front lines of the battlefield. Without hesitation, Ost sprinted at full speed, praying he would reach them in time to save his friends. On the other side, Suzani urged Kazuki that they must defeat the Black Knight quickly. Kazuki replied, "If that armor reflects all damage, then we can do nothing." But Suzani had a plan and revealed it to him. The Black Knight unleashed his strange ability against her, but Suzani cloaked his vision with her thunder magic. Thanks to that, she and Kazuki managed to wound him without triggering his reversal. Yet to their horror, his ability still reflected the damage back onto them. Suzani then realized that he could not reflect attacks he could not sense. She had noticed earlier that he did not return the wound inflicted on his back. With that in mind, she told Kazuki to strike him again and target his back. Gathering every ounce of her thunder magic, Suzani's movements became blindingly fast. Kazuki covered the Black Knight's sight with his light magic, and together they executed her plan. Suzani pierced him in the back just as she had predicted. Since he neither sensed the strike nor could utter a word, his power did not activate. Kazuki seized the opportunity and moved in to finish him off. The Black Knight deceived them, for he used his reversal ability as usual, and the catastrophe struck when he pierced Kazuki with his sword. It became clear that the Black Knight could activate his power even without sensing the attack, and that his reversal worked at his own will. He had only been feigning defeat to lure Suzani into his trap. With cold arrogance, he said to her, "There is no one in this world capable of harming me." Disaster fell upon Suzani and Kazuki, and Suzani apologized to Ost before her death. The scene shifted back to her past life, to the rainy day when she first met Ost. She thought to herself, "I was fortunate to have met him on that day." She remembered how happy she was when she had been summoned into this world, thinking only of beginning a new life. But she was even more shocked when she drew closer to Ost and found herself deeply impressed by his kind personality and his determination to succeed in everything he did. She was happy that he had accepted her eccentric nature, believing that everything would be fine as long as she was by his side. Yet the Black Knight shattered everything, defeating both heroes alone and crushing the last hopes of humanity to overcome the demon army. When the Black Knight raised his sword to end Suzani's life, Ost rushed forward with terrifying speed, gathering all his mana into his fist and unleashing a devastating blow to the Black Knight's face. He was horrified to see his companions in such a dreadful state, but relieved that they were still alive. He immediately healed them with recovery magic. Yet the Black Knight rose once again, and to their shock, Ost's healing magic had affected him. They realized then that inside that armor lived a living demon. The Black Knight, enraged, attacked with all his might. Ost carried Kazuki and Suzani and fled at full speed, continuing to heal them as he ran, drawing upon a vast reservoir of mana. But the Black Knight pursued him relentlessly. Suzani cried out, "Your strike worked against him, Ost. That is strange. His armor is forged of mana and reflects any attack, yet it failed to counter your punch." The Black Knight snarled back, "I do not know how you wounded me, but you will pay the price." Ost did not wish to fight, yet he knew he could not save everyone so long as the Black Knight stood in his way. He resolved to face him with all his strength, while Kazuki focused on protecting Suzani. The Black Knight lunged with his armored body, but Ost thought, "Even if my blows are reflected back at me, I can heal myself." Thus he attacked without fear, only to realize that the reversal ability had no effect against his strikes. Even the Black Knight himself was stunned, unable to comprehend what was happening. The Demon Knight tried to deceive him with a feigned weak strike, but in truth he had charged all his mana into his other fist, releasing it in a single devastating burst that exploded against the Black Knight's armor. Enraged, the demon attacked ferociously, but Ost parried every blow, shielding Suzani from harm. At that moment, Kazuki regained consciousness, astonished to find his mortal wound completely healed. Suzani told him, "It was Ost who saved us, and now he is battling the Black Knight with everything he has." The Black Knight managed to pierce Ost's arm, yet the shocking truth revealed itself. The armor had lost its strength against healing magic. The reversal ability did not work on his strikes. Kazuki, bewildered, wondered why Ost seemed to remain in a constant state of recovery. Then he realized the truth. Ost was doing it deliberately. Healing was the Black Knight's weakness. Reversal could not counter it, for Ost's fists were entirely wrapped in healing mana, making every blow deal pure, unreflected damage. His attacks left no lasting wounds, but the pain they inflicted was overwhelming. The Black Knight was stunned by the madness of it all. He unleashed his full demonic power, his massive sword swelling to many times its size. Yet Ost did not falter. He was determined to end the battle with victory, uncaring of what sorcery his foe used. All that mattered was ensuring no one else was harmed. Gathering every ounce of healing magic into his fists, he charged straight at the Black Knight. His fist collided with the demon's colossal blade, and in the end, Ost shattered it with the power of recovery itself. Then he drove his fist into the knight with overwhelming force, sending waves of healing mana surging everywhere. the black armor burst apart, and from within it, a demon girl emerged, freed at last. Ost named this strike the Absolute Healing Fist. He did not pause to bask in victory. Instead, he immediately returned to tending the wounded soldiers, for this was his duty as a member of the rescue squad. The remaining demons fled in terror, for their Black Knight had been defeated. Suzani said to him, "You saved me from death, and thanks to you many soldiers survived. You have surpassed yourself this time." It was incredible. Ost felt embarrassed, but Suzani returned to her usual madness and began teasing him about the name he gave his destructive technique. He replied, "That was a punch wrapped in healing magic, a technique taught to me by Captain Rose. Long ago when she told me she would train me in a special skill, she said, if you must defeat an enemy, strike with a fist cloaked in healing magic. Heal them as you hit them. That way you won't kill them, you will only knock them unconscious. It means you can paralyze your enemy without truly harming them." Suzani lost hope in him, believing he had been corrupted by Rose's brutish ways, but Ost ordered her not to compare him to his mentor. Still, she thanked him earnestly. "Thanks to your healing punch, you saved me from death," he answered simply. "I only did my duty. You and Kazuki are my dearest friends." At that moment, Kazuki told them that the giant serpent was still approaching the kingdom, and Suzani went with him to defeat it. Ost wanted to follow, but Rose stopped him and demanded he explain in detail how he knew the Black Knight would kill Kazuki and Suzani. Afterward, the Black Knight was bound, and Rose herself could not believe Ost had accomplished all of it alone, though he was trembling with fear before her. Yet she smiled and told him, "You saved 2 heroes, captured the Black Knight, and crushed the enemy's morale. You did the right thing." With the battlefield now secured, she ordered him to return with the soldiers to camp. Ost then told Kazuki and Suzani, "It's best if you do not die in my absence. You are heroes, so strike down the enemy hard and come back alive." Suzani replied, "Of course, we won't waste the life you've saved for us." And so Ost departed with Rose, dragging the chained Black Knight. Meanwhile, Amila appeared, shocked when she heard that the enemy had captured the Black Knight and that he was defeated by a nobody. She could not believe it. How could any human overcome the magic of the Black Knight? But the greater shock came when one of her soldiers told her that the one who defeated him was not a hero at all, but merely an ordinary man dressed in white. Enraged, Amila ordered Herlock to summon the giant serpent and withdraw from the battle. She had no desire to intervene further, fearing the commander's sigils, and knowing that since the demons lacked healers in their ranks, they would lose their forces if the fight dragged on. Yet Herlock was stunned when the 2 heroes suddenly appeared before him, determined to slay the serpent. Ost, on the other hand, had returned to the camp, continuing to heal the wounded. Then the sky lit up with thunder. It was the power of the heroes, who had succeeded in defeating the giant serpent. Thus, the kingdom of Linger claimed victory in the battle, driving back the demon army. At that moment, Ost thought of chasing the fleeing enemy, but Rose told him, "You fool, their numbers far exceed ours. We must minimize our losses and prepare for the next assault. The demons will not stop. They will return." She added, "Thanks to your saving the lives of the heroes, we won this battle." He replied, "Even if I hadn't intervened, they would have saved themselves." But Rose shook her head. "They would have died if you hadn't foreseen it. Even I and Sigils failed to predict that. You surpassed us both with your speed and strength, and you did exactly what a true member of the Rescue Corps must do." Ost then remembered every beautiful and painful moment he had lived since he was summoned to this world, and tears of joy fell as he realized he had achieved his goal. He had been terrified on the battlefield, witnessing countless deaths, yet he was glad to have met Rose, glad to have helped people. Rose, hearing his words, recalled her late comrade Ol, who once said the very same things, and she felt pride that Ost had survived. But suddenly Ost collapsed, exhausted, having drained all his mana and stamina, needing only rest. What future awaits him in the coming episodes? That we shall discover in the new season, which promises to be stronger and greater. Don't forget to support me with a like and a subscription to the channel in appreciation of my efforts. See you soon in more recaps. Until then, farewell.